The withdrawal, I think, is in bad taste because before such a thing happens, there are always processes.
Right.
And what normally, in the normal circumstances, the of personal security is always doing a threat assessment and then also doing a risk assessment. This will determine on the amount and the type of security that's supposed to be provided to a person.
Right.
And therefore, the question we are now asking is, was this done before the withdrawal of security from Governor Johos? So if this was not done, then this is unprocedural, and we are exposing a citizen who requires the security that he had been provided with by the government.
Right. Let's talk about withdrawing the security detail of the governor and any other governor, so to speak. What kind of dangers would such a person be exposed to?
The problem right now in Kenya is that we don't have a policy document on this. And what has normally been happening is that we've been deploying officers to provide close protection on demand from the subjects. And this is not what's supposed to happen.
Right.
In normal circumstances, as I've said earlier, is that we need to do a threat assessment and then carry out a risk assessment. Determine the number of officers and the type of security measures that are supposed to be put in place to protect the subject. And if you look at what is happening in Kenya right now, we're not doing this. We are jumping the gun. And basically this is why now we are getting all kind of things happening. For example, the withdrawal of security. We are being told that we have so many police officers who have been deployed to provide protection to the governors and other VIPs. Yet, in the first place, this was supposed to be determined by a proper analysis before this deployment.
And I want you to take us through the proper analysis. What does it take to withdraw the security of a high-profile individual? Is there a procedure that should be followed before that happens? Or is it in the case of the governor where in the morning he woke up and there was no security detail for him?
Basically, what is supposed to happen is that we are supposed to do a risk assessment. Once that has been done and we've established that, for example, this particular VIP has more numbers of security personnel that he requires, then we're supposed to notify them in writing that from this assessment, these are the findings of the assessment. The recommendations are we withdraw a certain number of officers from your detail. And he's supposed to be given time. If he feels like he's still exposed, then he can appeal that decision. And in the case of Johos, that did not happen. The CS woke up one morning and said that we are reducing the number of security that have been assigned to Johos. And I think this is not proper because we need to do a proper assessment and look at the threats that the governor is facing. If they don't warrant him having that number of officers, then we can go ahead and withdraw them. But if he might even require more, depending on
the risk assessment.
The assessment that has been done.
Right. And is there this a same procedure when it comes to now a firearm? Is there a procedure that should take place, a process that should take place before someone is asked to hand in their firearm?
I think we should look at it from the point of how did he acquire the firearm in the first place. Because the normal process is that you're supposed to apply to your local OCS. The OCS will recommend this to those days we used to call them the District Security Committee, whereby we'll have people from the intelligence services, people from the CID, assessing also your level of threat before now allowing you to be a licensed firearm holder. So in the same case, when it comes to withdrawing this firearm, you're also supposed to be notified and given 14 days.
14 days.
14 days legally to appeal this decision. If you feel the withdrawal is not justified, then you're supposed to be given a hearing. Not in a case whereby somebody just wakes up in the morning and gives us an order and says that you must return this firearm within 3 days. I think that is not also proper because we are exposing this citizen to danger. Bearing in mind that before he was given that firearm, there was an assessment that was done and there was a need for him to be issued that firearm in the first place. So I think also we are not doing these things procedurally when it comes to this matter of Kinge, Johos, and also YT2.
And YT2. All right, so going back to the procedures that you talked about, looking at how this whole thing is partnered, and now Ngaiseri says that they want to conduct investigations on whether the gun was used illegally. Is there a procedure to that too? I mean, should there be, like you said, like a notification, but also before that, should there be evidence that he actually used the gun in an illegal way?
I think we're just playing politics with all these matters. Because in the first place, if they want to do ballistic examination of these firearms, do we have a formal complaint in the first place? There must be a complainant. There must be evidence that actually the governor had misused that firearm before we start now coming up with investigations, before we carry out an inquiry on how he has been handling his firearm. If there's no complaint from any quarters, then I don't feel that this is necessary. I don't think it's the right thing to do at this point.
Right. If anything was to happen to the governor right now, who would be to blame?
It's obvious it will be the government to blame, because this is not the first time we're hearing cases of security being withdrawn from VIPs and then something happens. For example, Robert Ouko, he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then his security was withdrawn overnight. The next 2 days, he was not there. And basically, it's sending wrong signals to people. And when you hear the governor talking about not fearing, I'll organize my own security, where does that security is talking about coming from? Remember, we're having cases whereby now people turn into illegal groups to provide the security that the government has removed. And also, if we talk about private security, these security personnel will also need to be earned. What is the case where the government will deny them firearm handling certificates? So it means somebody will come up with an illegal team that will provide security to the governor.
So it's actually creating another problem.
It's creating another problem, and I don't think we need to go towards that direction, especially as we are heading to the general election. The temperatures are already high, and you've heard what has been said in Mombasa. There's too much tension in the city. So I think this is something that the government needs to handle very carefully, especially in relation to a leader who is the governor of a city like Mombasa.
So let's expand this conversation. Finally, my final question to you is that if you look at the distribution of VIP bodyguards, the president stands at about 200, deputy president 45, cabinet secretaries 10 to 12, inspector general 11, and then you come down to the governors who stand at 12. Take us through the way this process is usually done, giving the bodyguards what number goes to who. How is that handled?
In a proper situation, there's supposed to be a threat analysis. Once you've done the threat analysis, you now move on to the risk analysis. And the risk analysis will tell you exactly how many what type of security is supposed to be provided to who. If it's the president, what risks or what threats does the president face in his office? And when we're doing this, we look at it from 2 points. We call them 2 C's, where we look at the convenience, the comfort of the subject. So in this case, the president is high-level risk, and definitely that is why you'll find that we deploy more than 200 security personnel to him. But as we go down, as I've said, in Kenya, we don't have a policy document on how this is supposed to be done. And that is why you'll find that even the Inspector General of Police has 11 security guards. Does he require them? Did we do a proper analysis of the threats against this target before deploying these officers to them? You will even get an MP who has more than 5 security personnel. For what need does he have this? So I think we need to relook at the whole process again. Let's come up with a policy document on how this is supposed to be handled. Let us be carrying out these matters professionally. Let us do the proper threat analysis and accurate risk assessments before deciding on the number of people and the security measures that are supposed to be put in place to protect our VIPs. But as it stands now, this is not happening, and that is why you'll find that we are being told that Johos had 15, and that is too much. So what did we base on? Before we came up and say this is too much, and before deployment, did we do that assessment before deploying these 15 to him? And if there was need then, why do we say now there's no need?
Very briefly, if going back to the developing story, which of course is him returning the firearm, if he does not do it, the CS says he's going to be arrested. But will he have a case against the forces behind this whole drama, because he was not given that notification of about 14 days that you talked about?
I think the government has the right to withdraw your firearm if they feel that there's misuse, there's mishandling of this firearm. And once the firearm has been, the license has been cancelled, the normal process is that you're supposed to return that firearm or hand it over to the nearest police station or return it to the dealer that sold you that firearm. And in this case, if the government has cancelled that license, then if the governor does not return the firearm, then definitely he would have broken the law. And he can be arraigned in court for that offense. So I think here common sense needs to play, whereby let's look at the security of the governor, let's look at what the government is saying. And if there's actually proof that he misused the firearm, then let him return the firearm. But if there's no proof, then I think these are just acts of intimidation, and they're not leading us anywhere as a country.